was player in Germany as a goalkeeper on a third league level. Third league level is like in Europe, if you know the people in England, it's like League One, or in Germany it's a third league now. It's a professional league. It's really strong already. Yeah. And at the same time, I was studying in Mainz. Mainz is now a Bundesliga club. I was studying in this university. It's a sports science university. I studied for 7 years sports science and theory of movement and background of football, and made my licenses over the years. And then when I was 32, I got an offer from Japan, from a high school called Kunimikoko. It's very famous at that time. Many players come from this school to play in the professional league. Like, I don't know if you know Okubo, Yoshito Okubo. He's the all-time scorer in the J League. He was with me working 2 years. So I was working there and enjoying very much the life in Japan, which I could never imagine, to be honest, because we live in our country and we only live there. So we don't know so much. We know a little bit about Spain maybe, or France, but not about Asia at that time. And to go to the east, to go to Japan was like a miracle, like a fairy tale. It was like, nowadays you go to the plane and you go to America. It's quite easy, but at that time it was not so easy. It was different, really. I mean, more than 20 years ago. So I worked there, and it was like a totally new world. It was like a totally new system, a harsh system, very strict system. But you can produce players like this also. It was the start of the J League also at that time, and it was an amazing impression for me. So I stayed there 2 years. I met my wife, who is also here now, and back to Germany to take another license. And then beginning of 2001, I was invited to coach in the J League with Kyoto Sanga, with a German coach named Gerd Engels, who also made his life there in Japan, you can say. So we were training Park Ji-sung, we were training Daisuke Matsui, national team player in Japan, and others. Yeah, Kazu, what is the King Kazu? He was there in this club before. So there were some big, high-profile names already in the club. We won the Emperor's Cup against Kashima Antlers in 2003. We became champions in the second league. So it was a very successful time, and for me, the first step to enter into the pro business. And then in 2004, I was invited from the German FA to make the UEFA Pro license in Cologne. And normally, for my caliber of coach, it's very difficult to enter into this pro license course, because you must have some big past in the football, or as a coach. I didn't have that, but because of my international experience and because of the success in Japan, they invited me. I could do my pro license, and started already to work with the China FA in 2004. And also there we were working with the German FA in a cooperation to build up the Olympic team from China for the Olympic Games in Beijing 2008. So that was in 2005, 2006. We went to the Under-20 World Cup with China and played the most successful tournament ever. And players like Gao Lin, Fang Xiaoting, Wang Dalei, Hao Junmin, Chen Tao, Xiao Zhuri, all these players who become big stars later in Shandong or in Guangzhou, we were building them up and play a very nice tournament in Holland in 2005 for the Under-20 World Cup. All people were so happy. So what happened? They changed the president of the federation, and they took us out. So we were very surprised, but of course nothing we can do. That was my experience with China. It was a very good experience, because I think we kept the ball, we kept the stone starting to roll, At that time already, it was like they were always looking to become strong in football, but somehow things didn't work. Now they're doing it on a big scale, And still things don't work yet. If you look into under 19, under 16, under 23 is not so strong there. Even despite high prolific coaches, it's not so much pushing forward. No? They haven't found yet the offensive style in order to really dominate and win games. That's the biggest issue on a high level in Asia for China. Okay, then I got through the German FA, I got another offer to become the technical director in an Africa, small country, in Rwanda for 4 years. Also there, very successful. I trained the under 17, the under 20. We went to the World Cup with the under 17, which was a sensation. Actually, we were looking into coaches' education very much. We were building up women's football, etc., etc. Facilities. When I came there, they built their first artificial ground. Now they have 15. You know, so always I was there to push up the development of those countries. And then in 2011, when this was finished, Philippines invited me to become national team coach. So I pushed them from 198 into the 120. I think very successful period. Many people were so crazy about football. It was so popular at that time. In 2014, that was the next step was in Romania in the first league, in a European league, with Otelul Galati, which was a former Champions League team. Unfortunately, there were some financial problems and couldn't pay salaries, etc. Team morale was down. And then always I was in contact with Mongolia since 2015, and finally in 2017 we started our work. And this is how I came back here in the race in Asia. Beginning of 2000s, I was very much traveling and looking into self-studies, you know, observation of training, attending camps from big teams. Most prominently, my former head coach, Mr. Eckhard Krautzun, who was a well-known coach in Germany and who coached on international level. He was, in 2002, he leading Tunisia to the World Cup. And we were working together with the Chinese FA and with the Olympic team. He's a big friend of Alex Ferguson. They are very close friends. And Alex Ferguson invited him and me to watch the training in Old Trafford, in Carrington, in the training center for 2 weeks. So every day I was with the players, with Ferguson, with his staff, with Ronaldo was just coming there. He was 17, 18 years coming from Sporting Lisbon. Ruud van Nistelrooy was still there. Then Gary Neville, Phil Neville, Roy Keane, Diego Forlan was there. Scholes, very interesting. Ryan Giggs. So I saw them every day, making yoga training, making special training for coordination, making boxing training. So it was in 2003. It was revolutionary style of training. Yeah, of course, because Manchester at that time was on the highest possible level in the world. That was really cool, I must say, to speak with Ferguson every day and to hear some small advice. It was very, very interesting, of course, and this encourages you to do more as a coach. You see different things. And I apply these things now with the smaller countries. I try to, of course, you cannot train with these people like Ryan Giggs. You don't train with, you know, the young boys from Taiwan, but it's because football is the same, yeah, whether it is on this level or on this level. Only on this level they are better trained. They have from the youth. But Taiwan is already now a little bit higher. It's not like there anymore, not like Mongolia. It's already higher. Here we have 5-6 players playing in the Super League or in the second league in China. We have a certain level. All these experience also with River Plate. I was watching, we were in a camp in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and were able to watch River Plate training with Daniel Passarella. He was the coach at that time, the former captain of the national team, who played together with Mario Kempes and Maradona, and really a big figure. And it's a different style of football, you know, it's a different style. It's an American style, it's also very impressive. So we could watch these trainings every day, how they do this and that. So Arsenal and Real Madrid, I went to Austria to the camps. So to make my studies more and more, and to learn from the best. That was always my target. And now the most difficult is Mongolia, because there's almost like very little only, and the environment is quite difficult. No good facilities, not much training, so it's not so easy. But it's, I think, quite successful, I can say. And because I have no problem to train in Mongolia or to train in Thailand, in the national team. Of course, Thailand, this is different, but you have to always give your best. And that drives me. I love my job. I love to work with young people, and it makes me very happy to see development of an 18, 19-year-old boy like we have 2, 3. When they come in, they play like so fresh and so nice. It really, that encouraged me to do more. My first job, I found it in the paper, I can say. There was an advertisement in the biggest sports magazine in Germany regarding this position in Japan as a sports exchange advisor. And the Japan government invite sports exchange advisors for different sports, and they invited language teachers for this program. And I was applying for this program, and they took me. This was my first job. The sports science, the bachelor degree is like you have the overall sports theory. You have the overall idea of how nutrition works in football, about physiology, what is the body doing, how do I have to train, how is the balance between recovery and training. You have the idea of how you have to move. For example, a couple of years ago, the coordination training was a very, very popular thing. Now it's getting away a little bit more into speed training, dynamic training. Others work very much with weights. You have to understand all this background for the theory of the training. For example, with a player like Chempo Liang, I must train differently than with an 18-year-old boy from Mongolia who doesn't know how to kick right and left. On the higher advanced level, I must apply a different kind of approach, more tactical. But here it's like basic training a lot, shooting many balls, getting experience. The art is now how to master on different level. So in that respect, the sports degree, the bachelor degree helped me a lot. The football philosophy depends on the quality of the players. Of course, everybody like Manchester City, tiki-taka football. We look and see that, and see this is a fine piece of art. This is what I want, but in Mongolia I cannot at this point of time. What can I do? I have to see what kind of players do I have. I focus on the physical part. I focus on strong one versus one duels. I focus on compact defense and going quickly switch defense to offense, vice versa. We are not yet good in both directions. Coming back too slow, going up too slow, but it will come with the time. On top of that, I'm looking into good organization of set pieces. For example, against North Korea. North Korea is very dangerous in set pieces. We could manage and address this problem. And offensively, we are getting nearer to score after set pieces. This is basically, in simple words, the philosophy for Mongolia. For the Philippines was different, For the Philippines, we had big level players from Bundesliga, from Danish league. We could press higher. We could take a little bit more risk. We could play technically more sound football. Of course, with players like this, you can play different. With Mongolia, you can play like this. With Taiwan, I can say I was also. They have some good, interesting skills with individually, which now needs to be put together. So every nation, every club, you have to see which players you have, and accordingly you play to make them win. My number one mentor was Eckhard Krautzon. Eckhard Krautzon is now, or was the head coach of the Under-20 in China. I know him now since 20 years. He teach me many things about football. He's now 75 years old, but he's still going to England, going to the Bundesliga, watching every game. He's getting a little bit older, but still very, very, very in the game, in the game. And this person helped me a lot. He was national team coach in Tunisia. I told you that before. He has strong connections with China now. He was my mentor number one, I can say. For my personal observations, I'm very much fond of Jürgen Klopp. I made a license with him together. For 1 or 2 months he was in my course. His way of handling things and dealing with the matters. But of course he's also depending on the quality of the players. You look for the international guys. I was always an admirer of Arsene Wenger. I was watch his training also. I like this technical style of football. But for me it's only part of my observation, but I have to face the reality. What can I do with the players that I have? Different.